Okay. Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you again. Today, we have the honorary guest, Tomas Foltynek from Czech Republic, uh, Mandel University in Brno. It's our pleasure to welcome him here in this session. As you already know, he is the president of European Network for Academic Integrity. So indeed, he's my boss. Today, we will be talking about specifically plagiarism, and we will try to first define plagiarism, and then we will try to see different types of plagiarism. And we especially want to call your attention to a research project we conducted under European Network for Academic Integrity, shortly known as TISTOP. This is text matching software testing performance project, and we will be sharing our results with you. And also, we will talk about how to interpret text matching similarity reports today. Okay, first I'd like to introduce Tomas. I have some brief information about him. As I already mentioned, he is from Mandel University in Brno in Czech Republic. I first met him in 2015 at the conference, at the Plagiarism Across Europe conference that he organized in Brno. Initially, the conference was first organized in 2013, and it was the second time that he organized in Brno. And at this conference, he invited the delegates to constitute a platform in order to establish NIE, and that's how NIE was established. That was the idea behind the establishment of NIE. Since then, he has been coordinating our projects, our studies and research at European Network for Academic Integrity. His interest into plagiarism research dates back to 2008. He was already involved in several other related projects, and we luckily finished our European Network for Academic Integrity project, which was founded by Erasmus+. And hopefully we will be conducting several other projects together. Tomas, this is the brief information that I prepared to introduce you. We do welcome you again here, and if you'd like to add anything that you think might be essential for today's audience, please inform us. Thank you.
Well, thank you for introducing me. I think that you pointed out the most important information which the students should know. Just to add one thing, that establishing of NI and all the other activities, it's not just my work, it's the work of quite large group of people. In the NI project, we had 12 partners from 11 European countries, and I really appreciate efforts of my colleague, and I have to say that Salim is one of the most active ones, and thanks to him, well, again, not only him, but Salim contributed a lot to the success of NI, and you may know that he also organized a conference, Plagiarism Across Europe and Beyond, in 2018 in Ephesus.
Oh, thank you, Tomas. It's my pleasure to be with you with this project. Okay, then I'm moving forward. What is the main aim of today's session? Özgür, could you please read the question?
Sure. What's the acceptable ratio of plagiarism?
Okay. Today, Tomas will answer this question, will provide an answer to the acceptable ratio of plagiarism in any academic paper or in any student assignment. But before we answer this question, we'd like to learn about your thoughts about it. Consider, for example, if you check the guidelines of the institute, you will be seeing that the guidelines will be referring to some numbers, some ratios. And once you submit a paper to a journal, the journal also sometimes will be requiring some text matching similarity report ratios. What do you think about them, indeed? And what might be the acceptable ratio of plagiarism in any student assignment or in any academic work? Hatice?
Good morning, Hocam. I'm not sure if there is an acceptable ratio, but as I mentioned before, I had to provide a Turnitin report when I submitted my MA thesis, and there was this acceptable ratio of 20% of similarity, not plagiarism. I don't know if there is an acceptable ratio of plagiarism.
So, do you
because I don't think I plagiarized at all, because yes, of course I have made use of others' works. Of course I benefited from others' works, but I am certain, or to the best of my knowledge, I tried to acknowledge the work I utilized, I benefited. So I don't think that is included in the plagiarism category.
So do you mean that similarity and plagiarism cannot be used interchangeable? They are not synonyms?
No, because when we talk about plagiarism, it's somehow, or it can be referred to cheating, or I don't know, stealing others' works without acknowledging that the work I made use of is theirs actually, or my work is based on the previous work conducted by others.
Okay.
So I don't think if I acknowledge that I'm benefited from another's work, that's included in the category of plagiarism.
Okay, thank you, Hatice. What about the others? What were your experiences when you submitted your MA thesis, for example, Miranda?
When I submitted my master's thesis, there was no Turnitin detector. But so I don't know about that. But, you know, with other experiences I've had, it's that it's up to 20% is acceptable, because 20% might be simply referring to language patterns that are commonly used, you know, or if the tests are specific or the assignment is very specific, then if other students have done the same assignment, again, there might be similarity in the patterns and language used or in the way it was responded. So 20% has been the acceptable ratio in my experience. But when we refer to plagiarism, I mean, and similar, as opposed to similarity, plagiarism has a negative connotation. So it may include, yeah, like patchwork or similar types of, you know, knowledge that hasn't been attributed to the sources. Whereas with similarity, it's simply about the language patterns that have been similarly used in similar assignments, similar types of writing. That's been my experience.
Two important ideas that I borrowed from your discussion. One, you called Turnitin as a detector. What is Turnitin detecting?
It's detecting plagiarism, but also it indicates similarity reports. So there are two uses of it.
Claim that Turnitin detects plagiarism. We are going to check it. And secondly, patchwork or patch writing. What do we mean by patch writing?
Patch writing is simply when we think we are using, you know, the resources properly, but we are actually not. So we're kind of, borrowing from different resources, but not using the references correctly.
Okay, indeed, page writing refers to some weak paraphrasing skills. So
Yes.
when you paraphrase, you need to do two things. What are they? First, you need to change the structure of the original expression, and then you also need to change the words. Of course, you cannot change all words except from the terminologies. You will be providing synonyms. If you do not do this properly, if you only replace some words, for example, without touching the structure of the original sentence, then there will be quite a lot of similarities between the original expression and the paraphrase expression. So this is considered as a weak paraphrasing skill. In other way, Howard calls this as page writing. Page writing, on one hand, is considered a type of plagiarism by some researchers, but by some others, page writing might be the indicator of academic writing development.
Yes.
We need to be very careful here. I mean, consider, for example, from the perspective of error correction or error analysis in language learning. What do? We analyze errors so that we learn about the student's development, the student's proficiency in the target language, which is quite similar for academic writing. Of course, students will not be learning, will not be practicing academic writing skills at one day. So they will need time to practice their skills. Therefore, page writing might be an indicator of their development. However, they need to be very careful about what they are doing in a right way, in an acceptable way, and what is wrong with their citation, what needs to be corrected. So teacher feedback is essential for page writing. These are three important terminologies regarding this. Okay, then we are moving forward. Tomas, I'm sure you recognize this very important study by Deborah Wolf. She's also involved our T-Stop team, and last year she published an article in Nature regarding text matching software. Indeed, she aimed to answer our previous question. Then, Tomas,
sorry to interrupt you, but I saw that Kubilay raised a hand before me, so perhaps he wanted to say something.
Okay, yes, please, Kubilay.
No, I just wanted to define page writing, but you already did it, Professor. So there is no need to define it again.
Okay, thank you, Kubilay.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask a question about those 20%, which you mentioned several times. Is it where does it come from? Is it from some institutional regulations, or is it some, let's say, generally accepted level in Turkey? Oh.
Yeah, it is a common problem in Turkey. Unfortunately, universities in Turkey set ratios. And some of them are calling this as plagiarism ratio. Some others are calling this as similarity ratio. However, the main dependence in terms of detecting or preventing plagiarism is dealing with numbers, because it's quite easy for professors, or it's quite easy for institutions to simply focus on numbers rather than checking whether the matches are due to plagiarism incidents or not. So that's why we try to discuss it with more people, so that we try to call attention of the policymakers in order to pressure them. We need to change this. Otherwise, we'll simply be focusing on, as here Deborah indicates, we will simply be focusing on numbers rather than real plagiarism incidents. That is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
which is also the case at my institution. We are required to submit thesis. I guess it is 25%. If it is below this, above this percentage, it means that the thesis is not considered original and cannot be defendable. However, if it is below 25%, below these limits, but includes plagiarized expression, the regulations do not deal with it, whether there is plagiarized expression or not, but the regulations simply deal with numbers. That is the problem, Tomas.
Okay, you can copy 1/4 of your thesis and it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. So this could be misinterpreted in this way. So that is the problem indeed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hocam, may I add about my experience here?
Yes, please.
The graduate school, I received my MA degree from calls it the similarity, not intihal. Benzerlik is okay. So it was referred to similarity, and I think the ratio is defined for the very basic phrases like we use in every word, like the purpose of the present research is. I don't know, or the findings indicate that. I think the allowed percentages for these kinds of expressions. And also from my own university, I know that the ratio varies from the humanities and natural sciences. I don't know why. I don't know how the ratio is defined, but I know that the ratio varies from schools, from the humanities, from the natural sciences, but I don't know how they are defined or according to what they are defined.
Okay, there might be differences in academic writing styles regarding departments, various fields. For example, let's say you are studying legislation. What does it mean? It means that you need to be quoting a lot from the other sources. So this will be increasing the similarity in any manuscript. Therefore, regarding the fields of studies, the styles might be changing, and this could be reflected in their policies. This might be acceptable. However, the problem is simply depending on numbers here. For example, you said that at your MA institution, they allowed similarity up to 20%. What happens if you exceed 20%? Does this mean that your thesis is not original? So I think the problem here is merely focusing on numbers rather than checking the contribution of the thesis, the contribution of the research to the field. This should be the consideration, and we should be benefiting from text matching software in order to reveal whether the matches, the similarities are referring to plagiarism incidents or not. That should be our priority. What do you think, Tomas?
Sure, I completely agree. The percentage provided by the system is definitely not a percentage of plagiarism, it's just a percentage of the text match.
Okay, thank you. And I am sure Hatice, Tomas will provide additional explanation when we start talking about T-Stop project. He will be explaining false positives, what we mean by false positives. These will be referring to your samples indeed. Okay, then let's move forward. Here you see 3 layers of addressing plagiarism. And here I borrowed this figure from our project, T-Stop project. And as you see, simply dealing with tools does not help. I mean, simply incorporating Turnitin. does not help to combat with plagiarism. Tomas, probably you don't know, but in Turkey, Higher Education Council is provides access to every university in Turkey for Turnitin access subscription. So all universities in Turkey are using Turnitin as a tool to combat plagiarism. However, in my previous research, I revealed that simply using a text matching software will not help us to solve the problem. We will need some additional supplements, such as, for example, policies. And this is why we have this course, this PhD course, because policies play a very important role in increasing awareness towards academic integrity and preventing academic misconduct. This is a very important role for us. Okay then, what about the definition of plagiarism? We already defined plagiarism in the previous weeks. As you remember, we referred to the glossary of European Network for Academic Integrity. What do you remember about the definition of plagiarism? Kubilay?
Professor simply defined it's using, in other words, without attribution.
Using?
Using, in other words, without attribution.
How do you attribute?
So you attribute by citing, in-text citation, or in the references part, so on.
Okay, so in-text citations and reference entries, they go hand in hand. So it's quite important to cooperate, to provide a cooperation between these two. This time, we will be referring to a definition. Whose definition is this?
Teddy's
Teddy's.
definition.
This is Teddy's definition. As you remember, Teddy was with us last week, and this is one of the best definitions, most comprehensive definitions of plagiarism. Be careful, Teddy is referring to plagiarism not only by the products. By product here, for example, we might be referring to any written text, but be careful, plagiarism does not happen, is not restricted only with the products. We also need to include any ideas. Suppose, for example, considering language proficiency. If we say, in order to develop language proficiency, any student should need to develop skills in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Do you think we need any citation for such a claim? Do we need to cite?
Yes, we do. Yes. According to whom? To what?
I'm talking about 4 main language skills. What are they? Reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Is this common knowledge?
Yes, it is.
It is. This time it is field-specific common knowledge. So, if you are writing specifically a paper by addressing language teachers, language professionals, then you may consider it as common specific field knowledge. Therefore, it is okay not to cite any source. However, if you continue your claims, okay, you need to practice these 4 skills. In addition to this, you also need to practice grammar and vocabulary and culture, because culture is regarded to be an important component indicator of language proficiency. Now, vocabulary and grammar can also be acceptable as common knowledge, but when it comes to culture, this time you are talking about something new in the field. Therefore, what do you need? Now, this time, in order to support your claims, you are borrowing an idea which is not common knowledge. This time, you should be referring to a source. This definitely requires in-text citation. So for common or field-specific common knowledge, it is okay not to cite sources, but if it cannot be considered as common knowledge, we must cite the other sources. This includes any idea or any work. So, Tomas, would you like to add anything here at this point?
I don't think so. Perhaps when I did my literature review on plagiarism, and we, together with my German colleagues, and we included like our definition, which certainly comes up from this one. In the first point, we added also structures. So we had the use of words, idea, or structures coming from another source, because we also consider the argumentation structure or the structure of the work also an idea which is important. And if we take this idea, take the structure from some other work, it is worth acknowledging.
Okay, thank you for this addition, Tomas. By structure here, Tomas is referring to boilerplate plagiarism.
Exactly.
Okay, when does boilerplate plagiarism occur? This happens especially if you are copying the structure of any previously written work. Suppose, for example, you will be submitting your PhD thesis. There are already some other students who submitted their PhD thesis. What do? You copy their PhD thesis and then use the expressions. Let's say, for example, in the methodology, this study aims at blah blah. So you replace blah blah with the aims of your study. The data was collected from blah blah university, from blah blah students. So you replace some key explanations regarding your study. However, you keep the structure completely the same. It could be self-plagiarism. I mean, you might be doing this from your MA thesis, for example, when you're writing your PhD, or you could be borrowing from another student's thesis. So please be careful about boilerplate plagiarism. It may not be including any ideas, but if you are strictly copying the structure of any other assignment or any other work, then this will also be considered as plagiarism. Okay, let's move forward. Now, I'd like to especially call your attention to plagiarism spectrum. This is provided by Turnitin. And Turnitin here provides and calls attention to 10 different types of plagiarism. There will be samples. We will not be focusing on samples here, but this is for your information. There will be samples in this spectrum. So this will help you identify different types of plagiarism. But before moving forward to Turnitin's plagiarism spectrum, I'd like to call your attention to two basic discriminations or categorization of plagiarism. What is this? One, checking the intention of students in plagiarizing. What is the intention? Intentional plagiarism or accidental plagiarism? I mean, if the student is, for example, contract cheating, it is definitely, it should be considered as intentional plagiarism. However, previously, remember, we referred to patch writing. Patch writing might be due to poor proficiency in the target language or poor academic writing proficiency. Therefore, not necessarily might be a reflection of intentional plagiarism. Therefore, as teachers, the greatest responsibility should be differentiating intentional plagiarism from accidental plagiarism. I hope the examples that Turnitin provides here in this spectrum will help us understand this. Their spectrum will be dealing with 10 types of plagiarism, and in order to prepare this plagiarism, they conducted a worldwide survey, and this will be coming from there. The first type will be clone plagiarism. What is this? This is submitting another work word for word as one owns. So what do you do? What does the student do here? Simply copies from the internet or from any other source and then submits it. Or simply borrows an assignment and then submits as if his own work. This is probably the easiest one to identify. When we move to the second one, this time copying from another source and then pasting it, contains significant portions of text from a single source without alterations. As you see, this time, remember in the previous example, sorry, and just go forward. In the clone type, you see that the matches are exactly the same without any alterations. However, this time, when it comes to the second type of plagiarism, copying from the original source, this time you see some mismatches, which doesn't match with the original text. It means that the student makes some alterations here. In the third type, this time we call it as find and replace type of plagiarism. What does the student do? Changes keywords. Find them and replace them with something else. Moving forward, remix type of plagiarism, paraphrasing from multiple sources. It was one of the issues that we wondered the performance of text matching software. So we also specifically focused on this in the T-Stop project because many students, what do they do? If they are intentionally plagiarizing, what do? They go to the internet. They mainly benefit from Wikipedia and some other sources easily available on the internet. They borrow some expressions, they borrow some sentence, they borrow some paragraphs, and then remix them in their own assignment. These are expressions, different expressions coming from different sources. This is another very common type of plagiarism. The fifth type is called as recycle, which refers to borrowing generously from writers' previous work without citation. This is also what we call as self-citation. Suppose, for example, you previously prepared an assignment for any other course, and then you have an intention of recycling this, let's say, for example, the literature review part of your assignment for this course. Then this will be considered as self-plagiarism or recycle plagiarism. Hybrid plagiarism, this time student combines perfectly cited sources. However, be careful with copied passages without citation. We see no citations, no in-text citations in this case. This could be including secondary source plagiarism as well. The seventh type referring to mashup, mixed copied material from multiple sources. Again, multi-source plagiarism is essential here. The A type will be referring to 404 error type of citation. What does it mean? It means that there will be citations, references to non-existent sources. It is quite important, especially related to secondary source of citations. When students usually borrow secondary source ideas, they do not acknowledge the source that they borrow these ideas, and especially if the information is coming from an internet page, probably such type of plagiarism might happen because there might be changes with the links. So especially when it comes to secondary source of citing secondary sources, please make sure you are citing both sources, the original source and the source that you retrieve this information from. Ninthly, aggregator type of plagiarism. This time there will be proper citation to the sources, but there will be no original work. I mean, it means that the student will be borrowing expressions from other sources, providing in-text citations. However, once we read the student's paper, there will be no contribution, no original work from the student. Only copied expressions will be following each other. And finally, Turnitin identifies.
Interrupt you.
Yeah, sure, please, Tomas.
Can you go back to number 9?
Okay.
I have a question for the students. Does this fit to the definition of plagiarism?
It seems like it doesn't.
Yeah, because everything is properly quoted, everything is properly cited. So this is something I wouldn't say it's plagiarism. Of course, I agree that there is no original work of the student, so the student doesn't deserve credits for such work. He or she definitely should rewrite it, but it doesn't fulfill the definition of plagiarism. So I think that it is a mistake to present this as a form of plagiarism. I have to say that it is very common mistake. You can see that Turnitin has it amongst the forms of plagiarism. You can find it also in some scientific literature. But I think it is important to understand that we have to distinguish plagiarism and quality of the work. And if you as a teacher reject this kind of student work, you are rejecting it because of low quality, not because of plagiarism.
Definitely agree with you, Tomas. Thank you for highlighting this. So we need to differentiate plagiarism from poor academic writing skills. Here, for example, we can accuse the students with poor academic writing skills without for not developing good paraphrasing skills. But in this case, if the student indicates that he borrowed expressions and put it in double quotation marks, and then provides citation, proper citation, in-text citation and reference entry for this, then there shouldn't be any concerns related to plagiarism, but there will be concerns, definitely concerns, related to academic writing skills. So it is quite important to differentiate plagiarism from poor academic writing skills. Yes, Özgür.
Hocam, maybe this is why the institutions set an exactable level, a similarity level. They may think that doing aggregated citation may decrease the originality of the work. That's why they set a threshold level at similarity reports, I guess.
Okay, considering originality, it could be understandable. However, what happens if the student exceeds exceeds this level. Does this mean that the thesis is not original? Suppose, for example, the student borrows very good samples from the other sources and criticize them very effectively, discuss them in a very good manner in the thesis, then can we accuse the student that this is not original? I guess this could be another failure at this time. Yes, Hatice.
Hocam, I wanted to ask a question here. Okay, there's a problem with the borrowing process because we have the exact same sentence, so it requires quotation marks. But other than that, if it were paraphrased properly, is it still okay? You know, what I mean is student has no contribution here, but just paraphrasing. Is that okay? Is it still okay?
In a well-developed paragraph, what do we expect? At the beginning of the paragraph, we expect any writer to identify the main idea. And then after identifying the main idea, we expect the author to discuss it with reference to the relevant literature. And then at the end of the paragraph, what do we expect? We expect the author to draw a concluding remark based on the discussion. Okay, this section, if carefully paraphrased, for example, could be considered as the discussion section of the paragraph. However, it will require additional introduction as the main idea and a concluding remark. I mean, at the end of each paragraph in the discussion, we need to ask such a question. So what? I mean, we discussed them from the relevant literature. So what? What is our concluding remark? We read it. What do we conclude with regards to this discussion? So this will be adding originality to the discussion. Especially this is very important in review papers while you are writing literature review, because you will be recycling the others' ideas. Therefore, you should be bringing some original material, some original ideas to this discussion by adding them something new. Okay?
Okay, Jem, thank you.
Kubilay?
Professor, can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
So, okay, I also want to add something else. Maybe so we can talk about effort here, because there seems to be no so much effort. So while we are borrowing from the original text, while rendering our ideas, and this is also, you know, a perspective that we can look at. So maybe there is the number like 20 or 25 or maybe more. So, and if the number is more than 40 or 50, so it means that there is no so much effort. So this is what I believe actually. So do you agree with me, or?
Oh, this might be related to the field of study. I guess simply any idea based on numbers would be misleading us. Yes, Tomas.
I want to say that we have also always considered the purpose of the work. We assume that it was student work, which have some, which is important in the learning process, and we kind of always assume that the student is supposed to compose the ideas which have been already there with his or her original ideas, but it doesn't have to be always the case. Sometimes the purpose of the work might be just to get acquainted with the knowledge which was already here, compose someone else's ideas, and that's it. Yeah, coming with some other original contribution might come later in the second half of the semester or in the next lesson or whatever. So this may be completely legitimate assignment for the student, like take ideas from 20 other sources of the giants in your field of study and put them together, submit your work, and next time we are going to build our own argument. And in this case, like 90% of the work will be copied from other sources, and it might be completely okay in that stage of learning.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is important to note also the sentence in the definition of plagiarism where originality is expected. Because if the originality is not expected in that particular assignment, you can't commit plagiarism. Yeah? Because you can commit plagiarism only in a setting where originality is expected. So it's really difficult to generalize this because it really depends on the field of study, on the habits in that field of study, on the purpose of the work, on the way how the student manipulated with the text, on the way how the sources are referenced, and so on and so forth. So it just underlines the idea that setting the ratio just based on the number coming from the detection system is wrong.
Thank you for the clarification, Tomas. I'd like to exemplify this with reference to my courses. I have, for example, writing skills courses. This is a first year course for 2 semesters. In the first semester, in the fall semester, I specifically deliver controlled practice tasks to my students, which means that I provide the sources to be cited, I deliver the topic, and ask them to work on the same topic. What does it mean? It means that once they submit the assignments, there will be matching, there will be similarities between each other's source assignments because they'll be working on similar tasks. However, what I try to do is for the first semester is teaching them how to cite properly. So originality is not my concern in the first semester. However, when it comes to the second semester, then since they already developed these in-text citation skills, I ask them to produce something original. This time, they choose their own topic, they decide which sources to use. So it means that I will be expecting originality in addition to proper citation skills. So here again, the instructor should decide what to expect here. Plagiarism, originality, proper citations. These will be the concerns of the instructor. Thanks again, Tomas, for highlighting this. And this is the last one, coming from Turnitin Spectrum, includes proper citation, but relies too closely on the text original wording and structure. This is indeed what we can consider as patch writing. This is a very poor paraphrasing skill. The wording, the structure will be very similar to the original work, and which is not an acceptable form of citation. It neither looks like direct quotation, and on the other hand, it cannot be acceptable as a proper paraphrase expression. So here, for example, for such cases, we need to encourage these students to practice their, especially paraphrasing skills. Okay, then, considering this in our mind, I'd like to refer to our project, Testing of Support Tools for Plagiarism Detection. If it is okay for you, I'd like to, just a second, please. I guess I cannot open it here, so I'm going to share my desktop with you and start our T-Stop promotional video. I hope you see the video. testing of support tools for plagiarism?
No, Hocam, just your desktop. We can only... Oh, yeah, it's okay
I
now.
can see the video now.
Okay, I just started.
I can't see that. I can hear it, but can't.
Testing of support tools.
Sorry. Don't you see it, Tomas?
No, but I know that video, but I'm afraid that the same students might have the same problem.
What about the students? Do you see the video?
Yes, I can see it.
Yes,
No
we can
problem.
see it, Hocam.
Yes, I can see it too.
I'm afraid, Tomas, you are the only one who cannot see it.
I think the, it's not really synchronized because the music comes, but the video, what we see is the same, just the title, testing of support tools for plagiarism detection. That's for me.
Right now. There's just the title right now.
Yes, just the title, yes.
Okay, let me move forward. It will give you some idea, some basic idea about the project. Okay? So it will last for 2.5 minutes.
Plagiarism detection, which we acronym as TESTOP, is the output of an intensive 2-year collaboration and systematic effort of scholars. Our team comprises scholars from different countries, namely Czechia, Latvia, Turkey, Slovakia, Mexico, and Germany. So, what's plagiarism? Plagiarism occurs when someone uses words, ideas, or work products attributable to another identifiable person or source without attributing the work to the source from which it was obtained, in a situation in which there is a legitimate expectation of original authorship, in order to obtain some benefit, credit, or gain, which need not be monetary. Why does plagiarism matter? Plagiarism constitutes a threat to the educational process because students may receive credit for someone else's work without actually achieving the desired learning outcomes. Similar to the student situation, academics may be rewarded for work which is not their own. In this respect, we set out to administer the most comprehensive test ever for web-based similarity detection tools and offer valuable insights to academia, policymakers, users, and vendors. So how did we do it? In order to test the systems, we prepared intentionally plagiarized documents in 8 languages, compiled from various sources by using various disguising techniques. Then, by using these documents, we tested 15 systems based on their coverage and usability performances. At the end of the study, we proposed valuable takeaways for readers, made recommendations for vendors, and emphasized important points for educators. Considering both the number of participating systems and the number of testing documents and language variety, this paper describes the largest testing ever conducted. We hope the results will be useful both for educators and for policymakers who decide which system to use at their institution. We plan to repeat the test in 3 years to see if any improvements can be seen.
Okay, this is the end of the video. Let me go back to Teams. And I guess, Tomas, I have the figure from just a second, please. From our presentation, we had 2 related presentations, one in Vilnius last year, and the other one in Dubai this year's conference. And I have the figure here from Dubai conference, which might help us to give further information about the project if you wish. I'll just open it. Okay. Here is a figure from Dubai conference. What would you say about our findings, Tomas, considering both coverage and usability of the systems?
Well, you can see the findings in the top right corner where we put all the systems into a matrix. So on the x-axis there are coverage results. On the y-axis there are usability results. So the ideal system, the best system would be in the top right corner of that chart. So you can see that none of the systems managed to be in that square. So we have some systems which achieved or which performed quite well when it comes to coverage, and we have systems which performed well. They are in the top quarter when it comes to usability. So you can see that systems like PlugScan, Turnitin, Urkund, yeah, these are the best ones are there. But the takeaway message from the educators, takeaway message from teachers is that none of the systems is perfect. For all systems, we could see that they did not find some, they did not identify everything. So the report from the system always requires careful checking on the side of the teacher.
Okay, thank you. And Özgür, what about you? You are more familiar with Turkish findings in Turkish language. What would you like to say about it?
Just a second. Okay. First of all, I like to add that this test-op is by far, I think, is the best similarity testing study. There are lots of studies like this, but the main problem with these studies is that they have several fallacies in their methodologies. But test-up has a really sound methodology, and it's the, I think, best detection testing study. As for the Turkish results, you know, we have intihal.net as one of the vendors, but intihal.net's results are not satisfactory, actually. The most successful system for Turkish is Urkund. Urkund yields best results for Turkish language.
Okay. So, although IntelNet specifically aims at detecting similarity in Turkish language, I guess there is something wrong with their testing methodology. I mean, with their algorithms. So the other systems dealing with all the other languages perform much better, I think. Therefore, we need to be very careful about the weaknesses and strengths of each system here. As you see, none of the systems are good enough. Of course, there are some good systems, but not perfect. Let's say they are not perfect. They'll be coming with some problems. So we need to be aware of these problems. For example, if there are paraphrase expressions, there will be problems in detecting similarities. Or if there is translation plagiarism, there will be problems with these testing systems. Almost none of them will be indicating similarities except for Albanian system. Am I right, Tomas? For translation plagiarism?
Yes, you are right. They were the only system which identified translation plagiarism, but unfortunately their database was really small, so they identified the translations only partly from Wikipedia, I think, and nothing else.
Okay, so a good capacity to improve Albanian system, but the failure is, for example, Turnitin. They have very large database, so it is possible. It's highly possible for them to identify any matches between documents among documents. But when it comes to Albanian system, their algorithm seems to be working very good for identifying translation plagiarism, but they have problem with their database. So we need to be careful about the weaknesses and the strengths of each system. And another issue here, Tomas, we need to talk about is false positives. What would you like to say about false positives? How shall we interpret them?
Well, I have to say that there are both false positives and false negatives. So false negatives, that they are clearly match to the cases where the system did not identify the source of the copied text because it doesn't have it in the database, or the overlap is too small. But there are so it is easy to imagine. When it comes to false positives, these refer to random matches, to general collocations which system identifies as a match, so as a potential plagiarism. And always the teacher has to carefully evaluate the report and to exclude these matches from the consideration of plagiarism. Yes, so if you use like long sentences which have the same text, so there is clear overlap with other sources, the system may highlight it, but of course it doesn't mean that it was plagiarism.
Okay, thank you. So two things that we need to be paying attention here: false positives and negatives. What do we mean by this? Systems may not be detecting similarities because of the failures in their algorithms, or because of their small databases, or they might be indicating some matches which may not necessarily should be associated with plagiarism. Let's say, for example, you submit your thesis and you realize that the thesis submitted to Çanakkale 18 Mart University, Turnitin highlights this. Is this plagiarism? No, but this is what we call as false positive here. There will be such expressions, or let's say, for example, there will be common expressions, linguistic expressions in your thesis that will be highlighted. Let's say, for example, this thesis aims to explore. Suppose, for example, Turnitin highlights this expression. Is this problem? It shouldn't be problem, as long as all the expressions are not coming from the same source. I mean, remember what we said about boilerplate plagiarism. If all the expressions, linguistic expressions, or the template of the thesis completely is coming from a single source, it means that there will be a concern related to boilerplate plagiarism. However, if there are if such matches, linguistic matches, are coming from different sources, it means that they are matched with any source existing, so they shouldn't be considered as problematic. Again, we need to be very careful about how to interpret this. Therefore, interpreting similarity reports, text matching software similarity reports will be very important here. And I already had some presentations on how to interpret text matching software similarity reports. You can click this YouTube link in order to see my workshop session at the conference. So it will give you some ideas about how to interpret text matching software similarity reports by paying attention especially to false negatives, false positives and negatives. They will be important considerations. Okay, if you like, I can show you some slides from this session. So that we can talk about a few examples there. Okay, I hope you can see the presentation here. There are a few things that I'd like to call your attention here. The first thing about the terminology. Miranda, before we start discussing today, you call Turnitin as a detector. So it is good to call Turnitin as a plagiarism detector. I guess we should stop calling such tools as plagiarism detectors because when we call them as plagiarism detector, we give the people the impression that they will be detecting plagiarism. However, indeed, they do not detect plagiarism. What do they detect? They detect similarities. They detect matches among several texts. So we change our understanding of plagiarism detectors, and for the recent years, we do not use plagiarism detector. Instead, we use text matching software. Indeed, text matching software seems to be insufficient in terms of identifying their purposes. For example, such tools might be indicating similarities between images. So we shouldn't only restrict them with text. Therefore, in the project, we didn't call it text matching software as well. These we call them as the tools that help us to detect plagiarism, in images, in text, in ideas, or in anything else. So we need to be careful about the terminology. And here, maybe this figure might be useful in terms of understanding the idea behind a plagiarism, behind text matching software. suppose the student submits an assignment, what happens? There will be several repositories. For example, if you are talking about Turnitin, we have institutional subscription to Turnitin. So there will be 4 repositories for our institution. One will be referring to internet repository. Second one will be related to academic studies, periodicals repository. Turnitin is checking it against some journal articles, and some books. And there will be student paper repository and institutional paper repository. Another failure in our institutional policy is our institutional policy asks instructors not to upload student assignments, including thesis, to repositories. Because once we upload it to repository, if you send it again, then there will be matches between the same students' submissions at 2 different occasions. However, does not sending it to the repository is not a solution to this problem. The solution to this problem should be based on revision assignments. If instructors create revision assignments on Turnitin, for example, and then expect students to submit revised submissions, then there will be no such matches between the previous assignment submissions. What is the failure if we do not submit it to institutional paper repository? What might be happening? Let's say, for example, this year, Özgür will be submitting his thesis. And then next year, Miranda will submit her thesis. Miranda plagiarized from Özgür's thesis. If we do not submit Özgür's thesis to our institutional paper repository, then for the next year, in the forthcoming years, we won't be able to detect similarities between Özgür's and Miranda's thesis. This will be a very big problem for the institution. So we need to encourage every instructor to ask their students to submit revision assignments, starting from the very beginning, starting from the proposal, for example. Once the student submits the proposal, it should be on Turnitin, and then for all forthcoming submissions, the teacher should create a revision assignment there, and then ask the student to resend revised assignments until the end of the thesis. Tomas, what do you think about it? What about the other policies around global policies? Are you familiar with them?
Global policies, I'm not familiar.
Or maybe your institutional policy. I know you don't use Turnitin, but do you have any institutional repository at Mendeleev?
Well, sure we have our university information system, and as soon as a thesis is uploaded to the system, it is automatically sent to, we have thesis.cz, which is kind of the Czech national system. So it is done automatically by the university information system, and then the similarity report is provided to the supervisor and to the opponent of that thesis. And besides that, this year we also bought a license to PlugScan. So all theses and all the assignments in English are submitted to PlugScan. Unfortunately, this is not done automatically. There is no connection between the university information system and PlugScan. So there is a person from the study department who manually downloads all theses in English, uploads them to PlugScan, and sends the reports to the supervisors. But it is important because we know that the Czech national system doesn't identify plagiarism from English language sources. Well, it identifies some, but not much. So that's why we bought PlugScan, and that's why we use it for English language papers.
Okay, this seems reasonable, but the problem in Turkey here is we have a national database, your tez merkezi, where all theses, postgraduate theses are collected. But the problem is Turnitin database, their repository, does not have access to our national database. Therefore, Turnitin cannot detect text matches among these theses. So this seems to be a problem. Therefore, the solution to overcome this problem, if we are continuing to use Turnitin, it means that we need to create repositories, institutional repositories. If every institution creates their institutional repository, it means that we will have Turnitin will have access to previous studies. Therefore, they will be reflected in their similarity indexes as well.
Yeah, in Czechia there is a law that every university should provide all theses. All theses should be publicly available. But unfortunately, some institutions make theses publicly available just in the library, in the paper form, and very few universities publish all theses on the internet. So the text matching systems have difficulty in indexing these sources, and it's true for Turnitin PlugScan for any commercial system.
Oh, okay. It is good that to make them publicly available, because our theses are not publicly available. They can be accessed only by using our national system. Therefore, text matching software, not only Turnitin but also the others, they do not have access to them.
I think it's really useful because it's kind of crowdsourcing of the plagiarism detection. If you make the thesis publicly available, it's quite likely that someone from the general public reads the thesis, and if there is any plagiarism, these people may find it.
Okay, so it should be a good strategy while developing institutional policies to make any publication openly available. Of course, we need to consider copyright infringements here. Unless there is any requirement by copyright, then such theses, for example, should be made publicly available. Okay, maybe our misinterpretation of text matching software or so-called plagiarism detectors might be related to also with the colors, with the ratios and colors that they are matching them. For example, green color in Turnitin will be related to similarities up to 24%. So green will be indicating pass. Therefore, students will automatically assume that, okay, up to 24% similarity is acceptable. Whereas, for example, if it is above 75, then it will be indicated in red, which seems to be problematic. However, the assumptions, the misassumption here might be, if it is less than 75%, it is not red. It means that it is not that important. Or if it is green, it doesn't matter whether there are any plagiarized expressions in it. So maybe the ratios in addition to colors might be misleading people. Therefore, we need to show our students how to interpret text matching similarity reports. Here in this presentation, I'm providing some examples. This is the answer to our previous question. What was it? What is the acceptable ratio of plagiarism? So, of course, it should be zero tolerance to plagiarism. If there is plagiarism, even if in only one sentence, it is a problem. There shouldn't be plagiarized expression, plagiarized idea, even in a single sentence. but so zero tolerance to plagiarism. Here there will be some samples. I'm not going to focus on these samples, but if you listen to the presentation that I delivered at EPES's conference, the workshop session, then you will see the details, what type of problems we experience in these samples. So they might give you some additional information about the topic. Okay, then I am now stopping my presentation here and leave it to Tomas. Tomas, we are approaching to the end of our session today. We would like to thank you once again for joining us at this early morning, so early for you. We do appreciate it. So what might be your concluding remarks for today's session?
Well, maybe just to wrap up, what are the most important ideas which should be remembered? That we don't have anything like plagiarism detection system. Plagiarism detection is a process where humans have to be always involved, and we have some support tools. The text matching software tools provide the support to humans in that process by identifying the similarities to what they have in the database. So that's the first thing which is crucial to understand. The second important thing, which was mentioned several times, that percentage of similarity or percentage of text match doesn't have anything to do with the percentage of plagiarism. Yeah, these are simply two different numbers. That the plagiarist may obfuscate the text. They may replace synonyms, paraphrase, translate it to another language. So even though it is 100% plagiarized, the percentage provided by the system can be really low, especially when you plagiarize from a language using different alphabet. I'm aware about the case from Georgia, where that they had a thesis plagiarized from Russian language, and the match was only in the list of references. Nothing else was highlighted, because the language is completely different, and also the alphabet is completely different. So the text match was around 7% or something, and even though it was 100% plagiarism. That's one thing. And also false positives. If a student submits a thesis one semester and then doesn't defend it, reworks it, improves it, and submits it another semester, the text match might be 90–95%, and it is not plagiarism because it's improvement of the original work. Yeah, so that's definitely the message you should take from this class. Don't overestimate the numbers. The extent of plagiarism is always up to the judgment of human and can be never estimated by the system. So don't rely blindly on the systems and use your own head. And the third thing, which I consider particularly important, is the expectation. What is the expectation of the task? What was the student supposed to do? In some scenarios, which I already talked about, it might be completely okay to copy 80 or 90% of the text. Yeah? So if the originality is expected, then student might commit plagiarism. If it is a task where originality is not expected, then copying might be permitted, and it might be valid step on the learning journey. So yeah, thank you very much for your kind invitation. I again apologize for the difficulties with the connection. Yeah, early morning and Microsoft Teams is always complicated. So I apologize for the delay, and thank you very much for your invitation.
No worries, no worries. Thank you for accepting to be here. Just one reminder before we close the session. I realize that we haven't talked about homoglypsis. So this could be another strategy that advanced plagiarizers are using. So we need to be careful about this. What do these people do? They change specific characters with similar characters in the other languages. For example, O in English, and they replace it with a similar character in Greek alphabet. So they replace them in the text so that they try to misinterpret the algorithms, cause a failure in the algorithms to detect similarities. We also need to be careful about such plagiarizers. Thank you all for being here. It was a pleasure to be with you. The session will be available for any CHOMI member, including students. I hope they will also benefit from our discussions. Okay, do you have any additional comments before we go?
Thank you, hocam.
Thank you, Tomas.
Thank you, Salim Hoca. Thank you, Tomas, for this insight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all once again. Thank you, Tomas. Bye-bye. Very good. See you later.
It was nice to see Özgür again.
It's nice to see you here too, Tomas.
I already replied to your email.
Okay, I'll take a look at it now. Thank you.
Okay. I stop recording. Bye-bye.
Bye.